And here's a question that we got to the Ask button, and the Ask team forwarded it on to us because they thought it might be a good question for the show.
It just says, what is the best way to identify the main conclusion in reading comprehension passages?
So when the question is framed, is what is the best way to do so? And I'm thinking of multiple things that are happening to help you identify the main conclusion. For starters, you're going to read each and every sentence and make sense of it. Yeah.
I don't even like the phrase main conclusion in reading comp passages. I think it would be better to say main point or even main idea, because reading comp passages are not structured as formally as logical reasoning passages are structured. Logical reasoning passages frequently are going to have 3 sentences. One of them is the thing that they're trying to conclude. 2 of those are meant to be evidence in favor of that conclusion. And on logical reasoning, you need to treat the main conclusion as essentially bullshit, right? I think you're trying to force this conclusion on me from these facts, but you have to treat the facts as if they're solid plated gold, like they came down from the mountain on the stone tablets. Like we're not arguing with that shit. Okay. So on LR, it's different. On LR, it's like, well, some of this is meant to be evidence, and one of these things is meant to be their main point. And I'm going to tell them why, even if their evidence is true, their main conclusion does not necessarily have to be true. On reading comp, there's a lot more there.
Sure. There are some passages, right, that have a main point, that have a main conclusion, that the author is trying to explicitly prove that singular idea. But in a lot of cases, it might just be an informative piece where there's really 2 or 3 main ideas or pieces of information that the author's trying to convey, or there's maybe 2 main points. Yeah,
and it doesn't need to be stated explicitly. It's not the type of thing where you can just underline, the worst, throw away any reading comprehension book that tells you something like underline the main idea of the passage.
Yeah.
Or underline the main idea of the paragraph. It's like, how do you know what the main idea of the paragraph or the passage is? You haven't read the whole passage yet. You don't know what the main idea of the passage is yet. And they don't even have to state it explicitly. It can kind of emerge, right? It's like the whole vibes of the passage. What are they talking about? What do they seem to want here? Watch out for little editorializations, right? They can throw in these adjectives or adverbs where they like sort of tip their hand, right? They show, oh, wait a second, here's what you're trying for.
I want to talk about your use of the word emerge just a second ago, because I think people can misinterpret this in 2 different ways. I agree 100%. After I read a reading comp passage, again, it's only 15, 16 sentences, I'm looking away from the page, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so at the end of the day, dear author, this is what you want me to walk away with. And it may be 2 or 3 short sentences, and it was funny. Just yesterday in class, we did a reading comp passage, and I got to the end and I described in my own words what I thought the main point was. Then I described it again using totally different words. And then I actually ended up, for whatever reason, maybe through the discussion or whatever, described it again using different words. And people might get confused by that, but it's like I said, there's one central idea here that I'm trying to convey, and I'm just describing that in different ways with different words. But that emerged from the passage, and it centers over the passage, right? I don't want people to think that we're inferring from the passage some sort of new information or going off in a new direction, right? This is all still centered and directly tied back to the text in the passage. It's nothing new. I'm not making anything up here, but it is something stated in my own words that is a lot clearer and shorter than what the original passage said.
Yeah, it's like you're distilling it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
exactly.
So it's not like picking it out of the passage, like, oh, right here is their main point. You're not doing that. you're thinking about what they said. I mean, yeah, my eyes keep going to the ceiling because I'm looking away from the passage and I'm going, well, really the point of this document, the reason why you gave me these 14 sentences is because you're trying to convince me that whatever. And maybe they did say it explicitly, but frequently they did not say it explicitly. And it's just kind of going to be this like, well, having thought about it, I know what the passage contained, and the overall attitude, what they're really going for here is they're trying to convince me of X, and then you state it in your own words.
Yes. And you can only do that process. You can only take all of the information from the passage and then distill it into this, I don't want to say summary, but this main point, this main idea, if you've understood each of the parts as you read it, right? So if you read carefully and understand and track where the author is going as you read it, then you're in a position to do that. If people read quickly or whatever, then they can't do that. And that's why they're like, well, I need to go to these other strategies. I need to underline the main point, or I need to find the premises, or I need to read for structure. It's like, no, you can't do this final, somewhat a little challenging for people at first, right? Step, if you haven't done the heavy lifting up front and really read and understood each sentence.
Being skeptical can help, because when they say something that seems objectionable at all, or when they just continually ask the author, really, how do you know that? Sometimes they're just going to state facts. Like sometimes it's going to be like, in 1840, so-and-so wrote a book called blah, blah, blah. How do you know that? Well, I don't know, but I trust that you do know that.
Sure.
And I'm not going to really question your knowledge, the history that you're presenting to me in this passage.
Yeah.
But other times they're going to say that something is good or bad. This should or should not happen. And that's where you go, wait a second, you're trying to tell me that you're giving me a judgment now that this is good? Well, how do you know what's good? Where's your definition of good? Or this is an example from logical reasoning, which logical reasoning skills can absolutely help you in reading comprehension. We had a passage in LR yesterday where the first sentence said something along the lines of, unemployment will soon go down. And then it immediately kept going with more stuff. And there's two types of people. There's the people who are going to just read that unemployment will soon go down, and they go, okay. And then they read the next sentence. And there's other people, and I would encourage you to be this other person. Other people go, wait a second. You're making a prediction about the future? Unemployment will soon go down?
Why?
How do you know that? Yeah. What's your evidence for that? And it turned out to be a sufficient assumption question. The second and third sentences were premises in support of that first sentence. There were no keywords, no thus, therefore, since, no guideposts. They weren't telling you what their conclusion was.
Sure.
But if you had that skepticism to say, wait a second, how do you know that unemployment's going to go down in the future? Then it's easier for you to see that the second sentence was providing a reason why they think that's going to happen. And the third sentence was providing another reason why they think that was going to happen. And so I guess the only thing I want to say here to this ask button question, well, the point I'm trying to make right now is maybe try to be a little bit skeptical as you're reading the passages, just like you are on LR. Be a little skeptical on RC, because sometimes people are they're going to say something where you go, wait, what? How do you know that though? And then if you tune in to everything else that they're saying, you'll realize that they're giving you reasons for the thing that they had previously said, where you had kind of scratched your head going, wait, what? And now they're giving you reasons for that. Well, okay, so they're giving me reasons for this thing, then probably the thing they're trying to prove, the thing they're trying to sell me on, is that thing that I was earlier a little skeptical about.
Yeah.
What do you think? We beat this one to death?
I think we got the main point.
Good one. I see what you did there.